Number 3, scanning, paperless office. I love the paperless office concept. Certain practice areas are so prone to massive amounts of paper. I do a fair amount of matrimonial practice. The paper is staggering. I can only imagine what it would look like after 20 or 30 years of practice, how much paper you would have put together and have had stored if you choose to keep your files for a long period of time. So I've adopted an almost paperless office concept. I use desktop scanners for all of our people. It's myself, my partner, a secretary / paralegal. Everybody has one of these scanners. As soon as something comes in the mail, a document comes in, we take it out of the envelope, immediately put it on the scanner, hit scan, it rifles it through the scanner, and immediately uploads it into our practice management system. At that point, we use the practice management system to share it out to the client if it's a document that's supposed to be shared with the client. The client's able to see the document quicker than they normally would if we had to mail it to them. If the document does not lend itself to having a requirement to keep an actual paper copy of the document, at that point we will shred it, or sometimes the client might want paper version, so we would put a cover sheet on it and mail it out to the client or send it to them however they wish. But a lot of our clients have actually adopted and consented to taking their documents electronically. They don't want the paper anymore either. Another thing we do with certain types of matters is we will keep the paper file going for the pendency of the matter. At the end of the matter, somebody will quickly check that everything in the paper file was scanned. We stamp everything scanned once it's scanned, and we will give the paper file back over to the client at the end, saying, here's your paper file, here's a disk with all the paper that's in there as well, and you can do with it as you please. This ties in very well with the New York State's initiative for e-filing. It's on a county-by-county basis and a matter-type-by-matter-type basis throughout the state, but it's only going up. They're only adding more and more matter types that either can be e-filed or now have mandatory e-filing. Some counties, I think, allow almost any type of case to be filed electronically. Some are more limited, some have none. But at some point in the future, we're going to have to e-file everything. So scanning is going to become a necessity. If you're wondering what type of scanner you might want to use, most of us have copiers in our office at this point that handle scanning quite well. They'll take your document, scan it at a high speed, turn it into a PDF at a pretty good quality. If you don't have that, you might want to try something like a Fujitsu ScanSnap. The latest model that they have out is the S1500. It's a desktop model. It's about the size of a big loaf of bread. It's a workhorse. I actually have the older model. It's about 5 years old at this point. I think I might have put about 50,000 sheets through it at this point, maybe more. I've tried to extrapolate the number recently, and it has to be at least 50,000. The thing still works. I haven't changed a part in it. I haven't changed any of the rollers, nothing. It's amazing. It's long outlived what I expected it to do. One thing that you might want to keep in mind when you're talking about scanning is making sure that the scanner comes with a piece of software, or you purchase a piece of software that has the ability to do OCR. OCR is optical character recognition, which is when you get a paper document and you put it on the scanner basically just takes pictures of every page and then puts it into a PDF. When you apply OCR to the document, it will extrapolate the words on the page and put an invisible layer over the picture that has the metadata of all of the words on the page. So now you can cut and paste the language out of that document, maybe back into a Word document, or if it's a very clean document, you might be able to modify and depending on the software, you might be able to modify the language in the document right in the PDF. There are a bunch of different OCR software packages out there. We're going to talk about one later on, one of the more standard ones, but I highly recommend that you look into this type of software when you're looking into the scanning process. So I had a client who was a trust and estates lawyer. I think she had been practicing 15 or 20 years. She was living in Westchester, had a big practice. She had scaled it down a little bit. At one point she was working out of her house, but she had a ton of files. You can imagine how much paper a teeny practice would generate over 15 or 20 years. She was going to be semi-retiring, moving back to New York City into a smaller apartment with her husband, and wanted to have access to all of her files, but didn't know what to do. She went the paperless route. I set her up with a good scanner, set her up with a good OCR software package. It was actually the Adobe package, and we came up with a great workflow. And over the course of a year, she set aside time every week to scan a certain amount of her files. By the end of the year, she had every document that she had ever worked on that she still had in her house, which was a great deal of documents that she had in storage at her house, electronically scanned. And she was able to dispose of a great deal of the documents. Original documents like wills and things like that obviously were kept for the statutory reasons, but a great deal of the paper was shredded and taken care of, and now she had access to everything she had ever done at her fingertips, stored in the cloud, stored locally on her machine. And when she moved, she didn't have to worry about storing all of that data.